impeachment. With me now is Republican Congressman Andy Barr of Kentucky. Congressman, thank you for taking time this morning.
Jim, good to be with you.
You called the president's rhetoric on January 6, quoting here, regrettable and irresponsible. You vote. Biggest picture general question here, does the president, in your view, share the blame for what followed his words?
Yeah, the president here is not blameless, but ultimately I voted against impeachment because as a legal matter, the Supreme Court has set the standard for what constitutes criminal incitement in a way that doesn't violate the First Amendment. And here, based on the facts, the president's conduct, while unfortunate, did not rise to the level of the legal definition of incitement. But beyond the legal analysis, I think the real point here is that with only 7 days left in this president's term, what does impeachment actually accomplish? It looked to me, and every member, Republican and Democrat, had to make their own judgment, but it looked to me more like an act of political vengeance as opposed to actually trying to uphold the standards of the presidency. Again, what I would say is let's follow the advice of the president-elect and let's try to do what we can to bring the country together, to turn the page, heal, and unite the country.
I get that desire, and I'm sure most people watching right now are eager to heal. But the fact is we're learning more about just how violent this riot was. I mean, the assaults on law enforcement are, I'm sure you'll agree, alarming. And the thing about the president's comments were not just the comments on January 6th, but his comments leading up to it, circling that date on the calendar, and since then, refusing for days to call them off, right? I mean, as this was underway, the president would not say, get away from the Capitol. You know, I do not support this as it continued. And I just wondered, you know, because remember, this is not just about the criminal law, right? It's about the Constitution. If that's not impeachable, what is?
So, you know, what I would say is I do think that probably the most regrettable part of it was the fact that the president inappropriately insinuated or suggested that the vice president somehow had the power to not count the election returns when the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act simply do not give the vice president that discretion. And you're right. I mean, the president should have taken more decisive action after these terrible pictures were coming out of these criminals who were beating these heroic Capitol Hill police. I interact with Capitol Hill police every single day. These are brave men and women who protect our nation's democratic temple, and I have so much respect for them. And it was just heartbreaking to hear your last segment and to see those images. You know, the Republican Party is the party of law and order. And so I would say to everybody that whether it's the incursion into the Capitol building, the violence, the mayhem there, or the violence that we saw over the summer with some of the fires and looting of innocent small businesses, anyone who engages in political violence should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And there should be no double standards.
As you voted against impeachment, your colleague Liz Cheney, number 3 in the Republican leadership, voted for it. And there's now a group, includes Jim Jordan, who want to take that leadership role away from her. Do you support or oppose that movement?
You know, I think every member has an independent judgment to make on impeachment or certification of the election, and every member represents a different district. And I think members should be free to vote their conscience and vote their district. I will say that the House Republican Conference chairperson has a unique role in that they speak for the conference. And if the conference chair is out of step with the majority of the conference, that could be a problem. I'm sure that we will be having those discussions in the days to come. And I'm friends with Liz Cheney. She and I have a difference of opinion on impeachment, but I think I owe it to her to give her the opportunity to speak to the conference and explain her vote.
Okay, so you haven't decided then, is what you're saying?
That's right. That's right. I want to hear from all sides and listen to the debate.
You're a lawyer. The president is said to be considering pardoning himself for what happened January 6th and other possibility of other legal exposure. Can a president, in your view, pardon himself?
I think he can. I think the president's executive pardon power is plenary. And again, I would hope that it wouldn't come to that. I would hope that the vice president or the president-elect would follow his own rhetoric and say, look, we need to turn the page. I think, you know, the Republican Party has some soul searching to do here about our future, but so does the Democratic Party. And I think the Democratic Party and President-elect Biden and the congressional leaders in the Democratic Party need to decide, do they want their party to be singularly focused on political vengeance and hate towards this current president, or do they want to pursue a policy agenda? And better yet, do they want to pursue a bipartisan policy agenda that has the prospect of bringing the country together? I hope that instead of obsessing about the former president, we can come together, Republicans and Democrats, bring the country together and look at the reality that there are millions of Americans on the right and the left who feel left behind. And we need to come together and help those people.
Understood. Listen, on that question, though, I mean, you were in Congress for the last 4 years. Was there an effort to bring the country together, either from the Republican leadership in the House or this president? I mean, I don't think many people saw evidence of that.
Yeah, Jim, I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And I think just to point the finger at the president is wrong. You know, there was a lot of Democrats in this country and in the media who never accepted this president from the very beginning and perpetuated what turned out to be a totally false narrative of Russian collusion, and said even that the president and suggested he was an agent of Russia. And that we dragged this country through impeachment and the Mueller investigation. And so, look, yes, there's blame to go around, but the bottom line is we do need to bring the country together. We still have COVID. We still have problems with the economy related to the pandemic. Let's focus on those things that the American people actually care about.
Let's talk about big tech just before we go, and I'm sorry but just has to be brief. You have expressed outrage that Twitter permanently banned a U.S. president. Of course, there are other social media platforms. You know, Parler, for instance, has been taken off Amazon right now. I just wonder, if banning is not the solution, what is the way to get that the president lied via Twitter repeatedly about the election and other things? He encouraged people to turn up January 6th. On Parler, listen, Amazon pushed Parler to take down a whole host of posts calling for violence against members of Congress, your colleagues. Should people be allowed to call for violence via social media?
No, and that's the problem. The problem is the double standard, the fact that Twitter bans a U.S. president, but they don't take down the Ayatollah Khamenei, who calls for the destruction of Israel and the killing of U.S. service members. It's the fact that Twitter hosts a hashtag that says "kill Trump" or "assassinate Trump," and they don't.
Well, should they both be taken down then? Shouldn't then the president, when he pushes for violence, and the Ayatollah be taken down? Shouldn't both of them?
The problem, Jim, is the hypocrisy. The problem is that Twitter takes down the words, and whether you view those words as offensive or not, they don't take down messages that encourage killing police officers. So Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, can't have it both ways. Either he has a politically neutral standard against violence, or he does not. And the problem is selective censorship. The problem is that there is viewpoint discrimination. And Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, has now said that it's going beyond banning just the president's Twitter. It's going to be all conservative speech, and that is not who we are as a country.
I'm not sure that's true. And
I just 230, Section 230.
Let's keep up the conversation because it is a longer conversation. I would just look at the list of the things that Amazon asked Parler to take down that it did not. It's in the legal filings there. That's a big question going forward. Congressman Andy Barr, we do appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jim.